What is up, everybody, and welcome to Warren Workman Live, where I'm chatting with all sorts of fun folks. Have you ever wondered how many people are involved in a show and where they're all from? Well, let me show you some really cool stats. The world is made up of 7.9 billion people. Most populated countries in the world coming from China with 1.44 billion, India with 1.40 billion, and the USA with a meager 334 million. And that is in order, and that keeps on going down for countries and fun stuff like that. But here's a neat thing here. If you look at religion, Christians make up about 2.1 billion, Muslims 1.6 billion, and people who have no religious affiliation at all, clocking at 1.1 billion people. If you're looking at the size, like the physical size of your actors and crew members, you have 39% are considered overweight. I consider myself very skinny, but it's not true. Average weight is at 44%, and underweight is at 17%. And then finally, if you're looking at a human sex ratio, for every 101 males, there are 100 females. So why in the world would we have a whole entire industry based around a bunch of white dudes when you have so much beautiful diversity out there? And that's what we're going to be talking about with my guests here today. We have Karla, we have Jennica, and we have Archelaus. We'll just call him Archie for the rest of the show. But you have to get that name out once. Hey guys, how you guys doing?
Great.
Good, thank you.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, now this is how it all works for those who are watching it for the very first time. If you've never been on the live stream, what we've got going on is an opportunity for you guys to ask questions to our panelists in pretty much real time. You go ahead and ask the questions. Your comments will come up on the screen. We'll be able to discuss and answer those questions as we go. The conversation is going to be right about an hour-ish, unless it gets really boring, and then we'll end early, because why would we keep going on something that's boring? But I have a primer question to get you guys started, all right? Mostly, well, not mostly. I wanted to start off with Karla, because she's just right next to me. Oh, she's over here. There we go. Karla's right next to me over here. There we go. Karla, you may have seen her if you guys have kids and they ever watched YouTube. She's probably there. She's really well known as Rita Repulsa on the Ninja Kids Power Rangers series, but she's also got a huge independent following. And if you've gone to any conventions, you've probably seen her there as well. You've also probably seen her in Mission Stories. And if there's a new short film that just came out called Wonder Woman versus the Batman that she's done. So that's kind of cool. Yeah. Karla, can you tell us a little bit about what got you into the film industry or entertainment industry in general, and just kind of like your story?
So as a little girl, I really wanted to be an actress, but I kind of did things the other way around, and I became a teen mom. So I thought that dream was over with, that I just had to give up on my dreams. But in my late 20s, I started working for a television station, got into sales with the sneaky idea of maybe my dream can come true and I can be on camera. And it happened. And it was through a television station.
I love it. And where was this television station at anyway?
So it's Univision here in Utah. And
so
I started doing TV commercials. Yes. And so I would tell my clients, if you sign this contract and be with Univision on the air, I will be on your commercials for free. So that's how I started.
That's smart.
And yeah. And so one time a client was just bragging that he had me be in his commercial for free. I'm like, that doesn't sound right. How do I start getting paid for this?
I think that's fair. They're going to start saying you're getting a deal every time you sign an ad.
Yeah. And you know what? I had my kids in it, and he's like, I had this whole really nice family for free. And I'm like, this sounds really bad. I need to find out how to get paid. And so I started asking around and found out about TMG. And I've been with TMG since 2005.
I love it. And TMG has been, TMG is one of the more popular agencies here in the state. By all means, not the only one, but they do have a pretty good reputation because they're not the oldest, but they're very well respected here as well. Archelaus, Archie. Okay, I got it out of my system. Archie, tell me about your journey as well. What got you into this whole entire crazy world of entertainment?
Oh, gosh. Well, firstly, I consider myself a failed musician because I spent a while in the music scene trying to play terrible ripoffs of the Black Keys and the White Stripes. And that didn't work out. So I actually also went into sales, just like Karla. which I feel like retail and sales, if you do it right, it can actually be a master class in acting because of how much you need to hide from customers. Anyway, I want to give a shout out to David Liddell Thorpe, who kind of stumbled across me and gave me my first professional gig years and years ago. And I was able to meet some really cool people and establish some really great connections in this wonderful Utah film community. And I started off just as a PA on the bottom of the ladder, and then I would mention just like Karla did that, hey, I really like acting, and I really like doing this other stuff too. And somehow the universe was very kind to me, and I was able to make a career out of it. And now I work with really great people at Manly Bands, hosting their YouTube channel. And then I also am pretty active in the theater community here.
Absolutely. What I love is because he gets to work with me almost every other week right now over at Manly Bands. It's a lot of fun. And then just to point out a couple other things that Archie's done, he was Eli in A Crafty Christmas, which was on the Lifetime Network. And he was also in the short film that was over at the Utah Film Festival called The Mole Men. So he is in front of the camera quite often. He also has a lot of skills behind the camera, and we are going to explore that as well, Archie, later on in the show. Perfect. Now, we also have Jennica here. Jennica has a couple of shows. She's in a production right now called, Algea? Then she had worked with Devin Hansen on The Vanishing, and then another film called Making the Cut. Jennica, tell me a little bit about your experience getting into this crazy industry.
Yeah. I think I'd have to be cool, I have to say I also was a failed musician. I was like a semi-professional violinist for a long time. Started out playing violin and dancing and singing. So I was like, oh, I love these musical things. And then I learned about acting through school, really, going to school and saw other people acting, and I was like, what's this? Should I be doing this? And it kind of led me toward theater. So for a very long time, I was really focused on theater and wanting to pursue a career toward Broadway, and then diverted, as we often do, into the mental health field. And so I worked there as well, worked in the mental health field, and stayed in the theater world. So I was doing film and theater, and then kind of diverted due to some dissuasion to continue acting, and then went into the mental health field and still did theater, and now have come back into the film world, and it's been really excellent as I've been back in it, and I've been really thankful for all the connections I've made with really amazing artists, really amazing creatives, and it's reminded me about and really helped me root back to myself as a storyteller and an artist. And so I've kind of always been in the performing arts, but I think in the last couple of years especially, I've been able to hone in on my passion for being an actor specifically. But eventually I would love to also direct and write more.
And I think all those things are very easily attainable for all the talented people that are on this chat right now. So this is going to be exciting. I'm so excited for this chat. I really, truly am. Plus, I didn't have the slightest clue that you were in the mental health field too. I was a nurse at the state hospital for 8 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Warren.
Yeah. I know, right? Kindred spirits.
I knew you got
me. We're right there, right there. Okay. Yes, I got some fun questions. These are questions that a lot of us white men can't answer. So this is going to be fun. Especially because I know Karla's done this. Let's talk about, first off, being able to be bilingual, okay? I love the fact that we have folks that can speak more than one language, because I could barely speak this English here right now. But Karla has been in several films and commercials that have required you to be able to speak multiple languages. Tell me about how that has been a benefit for you with having such a broad background.
It has been such a benefit in every type of job I've done. spokesperson. A lot of clients will just hire me to do English and Spanish, and they'll film it together. So they film this section, English, Spanish, then this section. They don't have to hire two spokespeople, so they get it done so much easier. And some roles are bilingual, and some are purely Spanish. There's a short film called La Luna El Colibri, and that is a short film that thankfully has won so many awards, and that was purely in Spanish. And so it just gives you double the opportunity. So I love it. I'm so blessed that my parents, sorry, I was going to say, I'm so blessed that my parents made me speak English, because I grew up in Central America and they made me speak English at home.
Well, I'm glad that they did both, because having that opportunity to be able to do multiple languages just opens up the floodgates for all sorts of experiences. And I think that's amazing. One of the things that also gives you a lot more experiences working in the film industry is being able to work in front of and behind the camera. Now, Archie here is looking at directing. He's got Othello coming up. So he's done the theater side, he's done the film side, he's done the commercial side. But Archie, when you're working, I know there's an easy way to say, hey, we need to have a bit more visually diverse cast for, the show. But what are the benefits of having more diverse crew members as well that have a lot more background?
Well, I think, the fact of the matter is that all of our skills come from experience, and it can only help any production when you have not only a diverse amount of people, but a diverse amount of experiences. And obviously my experience is going to be different from yours, or even Jennica's or Karla's, and vice versa. And I think storytelling is such an inherent part of being a human being. It's one of the first things that we accomplished as human beings that kind of set us apart. We hunted and we gathered and we drew pictures on walls and we told stories about ourselves around campfires. And we've been doing that for thousands of years. And so to me, everybody is a storyteller. Everybody has a story. Everybody has relevant experience somehow and I've been around, like you were saying, I've been around so many production crews that I feel like there's always a place for somebody. There's always a place where somebody belongs and somebody can be can feel useful. For myself and my experience, just having different people every time you're on set is such a huge asset. Again, because it's all storytelling to me, whether it's theater, whether it's film, whether it's commercial. At the end of the day, we're telling stories, and that's the only thing that matters.
And what I love that you talked about there is that you can find a position anywhere on the set, but you don't have to be pigeonholed into just one position. So you don't have to be, even whether it's the crew side or the cast side, you don't have to be pigeonholed into one area. And that's really what I want people who are watching this to explore mentally. It's, if I was to cast or crew up a production, what could I do to look outside of my neighborhood? What other viewpoints can I bring in to enhance the storytelling, to make sure I'm telling a nice rounded story and giving it this project the very best foot forward? And as you mentioned, you can always find that position in a crew that you really love, but you don't have to stay in that position too. You could do multiple things. You've done multiple things. I think you've done everything except for camera. Is that about right? Yeah,
that's a whole world that I feel like there's a lot of more people talented than I am at camera. But not just to put yourself in those positions, but having been on the other side of the camera as a producer, it also, it behooves us all, and it just helps the community at large when we think outside of the box and filling those positions, when we're those gatekeepers, when we're those people in charge. Sometimes we're working with budgets that maybe aren't the ideal that we had, and sometimes we have to be very creative with our casting and our hiring crew members. And so, I found it a lot more fulfilling to think outside of the box and, reach out to my friends and reach out to those people that I know that I'm like, they've expressed interest in doing this. I'm in charge of this kind of low budget project. It needs to get done quickly. Let's give them a shot. Let's see how they do. And I've been very fortunate 9 times out of 10 that every time I do that, I find something that, like you were talking about, Warren, like they really excel at this. Oh, they're really good at this. And it just helps grow our industry and our talent pool, and it enriches this all. And so, yeah, that's I guess my takeaway is, think outside of the box when you're crewing and you're casting. You don't always have to have the same people over and over, as nice as that is.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're really going to grow our communities, we do have the power and those people in charge, those other producers and line producers and gatekeepers. You do have the power to kind of make this industry the way that I feel like it should be, and then also the way that the ideals that sort of it also could be.
Right. Now, Jennica looked like she had something to add there. And Karla.
Yeah. I was just going to say that I think there's so much value as well, in addition to all the things you were saying, Archie, about giving people a chance and diversity of experiences, and that we want, if everyone is a storyteller, we want everyone to have the opportunity to come together to share that core element and that story, and bring it to life. And of course, there's even the really kind of maybe basic logistical elements of, it's great to have diverse perspectives and backgrounds in terms of the jobs themselves, like to have artists come in and say, I know how to light to make this person look really great on camera for the scene, so it fits the story, but it also helps to highlight the way this person really looks and the way they look as this character, and to have a writer that's writing and thinking about the complexity and diversity that the character could hold, and that whoever portrays this role will bring parts of themselves to it as well, and that is incredibly rich and beautiful the more we have those nuanced elements of the story and of the character that someone can bring out. And so I think every role ends up being so valuable in the way that you as an artist get to express something, get to infuse a part of yourself into that, and also then uplift and elevate every other artist in the space. And that's something that I am deeply passionate. And if you've ever been with me on set or in any capacity, you know that I'm really passionate about this space being one in which every single person in it sees themselves as valuable, seen, heard, and also feels like they can create and be the best version of themselves in this space as an artist. And I think diversity helps us achieve that.
I agree. Karla.
Yes, I wanted to say we're talking about why bringing diversity to films. And I was thinking of Guillermo del Toro. They were asking Guillermo del Toro where he gets this idea so freaky. You know, he has such freaky ideas and so unique. And he says, as a Latino, you grow up with parents telling you scary stories, like really, really scary stories. So he brought something from his childhood to the world, and not all the world was used to any of this. So just bringing diversity brings something new to the table, something really exciting. And for those that did grow up with that, like me, we can relate to it. So those that didn't, it's just like, whoa, this is a new world. And those that did, we relate to it, and now we're big fans. So that's why you bring diversity, just opens your eyes and it just brings excitement. Like Encanto, it was such a hit because it brought new things that people just are not used to seeing, and it's new and it's exciting. It's not the same old, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up too. Go ahead, Jennica, go ahead.
I was going to say, I totally agree, Karla, that Encanto was so beautiful. for so many reasons. But I think the element also was that it was unfamiliar and new, and then it also brought in like something that we all can relate to. Like it brought something that even if you weren't a part of that culture, you were like, wow, I feel really connected to these people and this culture and the sentiments that they're feeling. And of course, there's so much about intergenerational trauma in that film that I think a lot of people do understand in their own way, but that culture has a unique understanding of it and experience of it.
And just
Go ahead.
Right, Archelaus, go ahead and chime in there.
Just to add to that, these worlds and these cultures that diversity brings to the table, I love them, and I love seeing and connecting with other people. And to me, it's always been kind of an interesting, kind of funny thing because, growing up, I was a huge fan of J.R.R. Tolkien, and anybody who knows me knows that like I was such a fan that I learned how to speak Elvish in high school, and write the letters. And I always had a copy of one of the books in my back pocket everywhere I went. And
me too. The Hobbit.
I think that's great. I think a lot of people crave new worlds and stories, and if we can believe that elves and dwarves exist, or if we can empathize with them and we can empathize with these mythologies, then why can't we just mythologize with or not mythologize, but why can't we empathize with our fellow human beings and listen to their stories and be part of those worlds? Like it's the same exact energy.
Yes.
And I know there's a lot of controversy around the casting of the new Amazon Lord of the Rings series because they are bringing diversity to their world. And I find it frustrating when I see these people talk about, hey, we can't have that, and I'm like, why not? You empathized with this world, when it was on paper and it was just in your head. And so did I, why am I not allowed to picture myself in these worlds and empathize and see myself in the media that I consume?
But a Filipino can't be a giant. That's crazy. That's great. Wait a minute. Since when did giants have to be ethnically specific? Since when did giants all have to be white guys?
Well, and I also,
the only requirement for a giant is to be large and tall.
I'm pretty sure that's it.
Well, and I think we often are like, oh, well, like we don't want to culturally appropriate. We want to be careful. And I think the thing is like, bring in people of the culture that maybe isn't familiar to you and let them tell the story in a way that's authentic, and you will be able to experience that wonder and awe and love for that thing that they're presenting, just the same way you might for a culture that is otherworldly, and we love telling stories that are bigger than ourselves in that way. And that's magical. Like when you can harness the beauty of like, I am accessing something that I'm not familiar with, but I'm getting to see it so authentically. Like that's the pure magic that we love when we read a fantasy novel too.
And I just wanted to say that something that I love that is happening now that was not happening before is that, and I give the Latino example just because I'm Latina, but I would see projects that are supposedly of Latino people and they were not accurate. And so I love that now they are hiring, if it's going to be for Latinos, then they're hiring Latinos like Encanto. And there's a lot of things that, and I'm going to give you an example. I watched Encanto with my son-in-law who is from New York. He's not Hispanic. And my daughter who's Latina. And he loved just the new things about it, the exciting things that he's not used to, right? And my daughter and I were looking at each other at things that they would do, like they did this. This is a Latino thing, or like, you know what I mean? And we're so excited that they're like bringing in real things. And so it's important to do that. Where before I don't know, they were making things up, I guess, but now they're actually hiring people that know. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
And and I'm adopted, and so I was raised in a white world, sort of, but I'm not white, and I often have related so much to people who are biracial as well, because there's like a little bit of an in between, like you're kind of in limbo, like, oh, I really want to connect to this, and I in some ways connect to this, but in other ways I'm kind of connect to neither, and so I think that's something I'm really passionate about too, like looking at the in-between, like how do we tell stories for people who don't feel like they have those full elements of the culture, but really want to be a part of it and have some elements and don't have others. And how do we start to fill in that space so that everyone feels seen and everyone feels like exactly what you're saying, Karla, like it's authentic. It's like really a part of who you are, and you're seeing yourself, you're seeing your own culture.
Yeah. Archie, it looked like you wanted to say something too.
I agree. 100%.
That's it. That was it. Perfect. Now this is the fun part, guys. Yeah, if you remember, we'll come back to it. I mean, it's not like television where I have to cut for a commercial break or something. But
we don't even have to think about television anymore. It's like, all streaming now.
Forget TV now, but we do get to do interaction with the viewers, and so Wendy actually jumped on here earlier, and she had a question for you. Wendy says, "What implicit bias have you faced when being a person of color has hindered your chances of being cast? And when has your talent overcome those bias you were cast?" I love the roundness of that question. Thank you, Wendy.
Yes.
All right, who wants to take a stab at that first? I could feel like Karla's like ready to jump out of their seat for it. I love it. Do it, Karla. Give it to us.
Okay, so something that happened to me, guys, you're not going to believe this, but my hair is actually really light. So I have a Hispanic mother and an American dad. So there's a lot of blondes in my family. Now, I grew up in Latin America being a Latina that's blonde. And when I moved to the US and I would go to auditions, I would not get cast because of my light hair. And Sofia Vergara, I saw that she colored her hair black. And she explained in an interview that she was not being able to be cast as a Latina because of her light hair. And so she had to color it black to get cast. And then she got the big role. And now she doesn't feel like she needs to. I still color my hair black to this day because it does affect casting. It just does. Now I want
something
to
that's so minor though, but now you're booking everything.
Well, I want to mention this real quick. In Latin America, watch soap operas. Watch soap operas, and you will find a lot of Latinas that are blonde. And actually, they're very popular Latinas that are blonde. And Latinos don't say, Latinos don't say you're a redhead, you're a blonde, you're not a Latina. Now, if you speak with a really thick accent, they'll be like, okay, you did not grow up in Latin America. That is not my case. My first language is Spanish. So it is just kind of like a mentality here that if you're a Latina, you have to have dark hair.
That's good to know. So, I've never been a Latina, so I can't speak from experience.
Next time you're a Latina, Warren.
Next time I'm Latina, though, I'll pay attention to that. I'll pay attention to that.
Dye your hair.
What about you guys?
Yeah, go ahead, Archie.
I'll actually speak to that. Remind me the question again.
Oh, let's see here. Wendy, what'd you say here? What implicit bias have you faced when being a person of color has hindered your chances of being cast? And when has your talent overcome those bias and you were cast?
Growing up and coming up as an actor earlier in my career, I had gotten it in my head that I was never going to be a romantic lead. And I was never going to be the lead in something. So I focused my efforts and training in like being the best supporting character that I can. And that was something that I accepted. And full disclosure, Wendy is a colleague directly, and we teach in an acting group for Epoca. And it's an acting group catered towards the needs of BIPOC performers here in Utah. And again, full disclosure, she was teaching me in a class, and she gave me a monologue, and it was Romeo from Romeo and Juliet. This is a role that I never in a million years would ever think to audition for or read for. You know, I've done Romeo and Juliet. I've been Benvolio a few times. I've been Tybalt, but never Romeo. And I was having some trouble with the scene, and she actually said, "Don't cast yourself out of this role." I picked this monologue for you precisely because I haven't seen that type of Romeo, and I want you to do this monologue. And just being given that opportunity, even in this low stakes situation, it kind of changed my thinking, and I was able to. The timelines are a little mixed up, but it kind of hammered home this lesson to me of I am capable because of who I am and because of my experiences and because of how I look. And you know, I've had plenty of opportunities turned down because of how I look, but it wasn't until I sort of embraced how I looked and was okay with that I started to get more opportunities. And in fact, you know, I'm like the least English looking person, but you know, my talents and my work, I think speaks for itself. But, you know, there was a whole 2 years of my life where I played English characters because of the work and preparation. That attitude sort of helped me of, no, we're actors, and I'm just going to work on this accent, and I'm just going to I'm going to try to represent the characters as best as I can, and I'm not going to try to be somebody else in this role. I'm going to embrace who I am and what makes me different, and I'm gonna put this in this role. I don't know. That was a long answer.
It was a long answer, but it made a lot of sense. You know, we were driving around the other day and we were talking about how important it is to try and step out of where we all feel like pigeonholed and typecast. You know, maybe you're a fluffy individual and you've never been put in that sexy role. How would that be? How interesting would that be? What if we did the movie A Christmas Carol, but only had like flipped the roles around? So all the white folks were in the service roles and every other person of color was the lead character. That would be interesting. That's a story we haven't seen yet. It's a different way of saying it. That could be very interesting. It could be a very interesting way to bring it up.
I love what you just said, Warren. It's a different way of saying it.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, as actors and as performers, our words and the way that we say our words are everything. And the more articulate that we can be as performers and actors, the better we are and the better that the project is when we can express ourselves in even more ways. And going back to, I guess, the topic at hand, you know, when we can say things differently, like you were saying, Warren, and when we can do things differently and we can express ideas in a more articulate and more intricate manner, you know, I think audiences respond to that and they crave that.
I agree. I think that's a nice way to see it. Jennica, I want to get your perspective on this. What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I've seen Archie B. Romeo in said monologue in our class, and it was phenomenal. And all the kudos to Wendy, because she challenged each of us in that moment to do something we thought we couldn't do. And she's phenomenal. So love you, Wendy. But I think I would absolutely echo what both Karla and Archie said. I think something that I had a lot of thoughts, and I tend to be like, okay, what am I gonna land on? But I feel like with moments and implicit biases that impacted me, it's often been a mixture of my own self-defeating belief about myself and then letting that influence the way I approach the role even. So like the example of, oh, I would never be cast as the romantic lead, or I would never be seen as this or that, was maybe a belief I also held about myself. Like, oh, I'm not that type of material. I remember being told by someone when I was young, and this kind of pushed me out of film for a while, like, oh, you'll never be the lead. You'll always maybe be the side character in the background because you don't have the look that they'll want. And I was like, well, that's probably true. Like, I don't know if I have the look that I want. You know, like, I don't know if I like my look enough to feel like I could be successful. And I think that that's a really important thing for all of us as artists, but also for my fellow actors of color. Like, when you grow up not seeing yourself on the screen, or you grow up seeing exactly one version of you, like what Karla, you were saying with your hair color, like all the versions of you that exist on the screen have dark hair. Or all the versions of me that exist on the screen are the like quirky, kind of out of shape pal or whatever, you know, or I just don't see me. Because I remember as a kid, we would pick characters from shows and reenact and create new scenes for those characters in the real world on the playground. And there was never the one that looked like me. So they'd be like, oh, I don't know, Jennica, you can just be this one. And it was typically the Black or African-American character, or the one with curly hair that had dark hair, and sometimes the Asian character. And so I think you get it in your body, in your mind, in your brain often that like you don't have a place at that table. It doesn't exist for you. So you either have to create it, or you have to like shoehorn yourself into something else to be accepted and to get the part, or to be in that world. And one of the things that I have grown into, especially over the last year, is this sense that like the value that I bring to the production or to whatever it is we're doing is literally me. It's who I am, like who I am, what I bring, and the way I look are beautiful, valuable things. And if I value those things, if I see myself as capable and put myself in this space as someone who can do it, because I know I can, then other people will also pick up on that and be like, yeah, actually, not only do I see you in this part that maybe I didn't before, but I do now, but I also see another one for you down the road. I see myself writing something for you and with you in mind. And, you know, I've had a lot of fortune in my theater career to play a ton of different types of roles, ingenues to villains to many different characters. But in the film world, as I'm newly back into it and navigating it, that's something I'm also trying to explore, is like, where within me do I find these characters and my capability to play them? And how do I remind myself that like I do belong there. I am an artist, I am a storyteller, and that my voice alone is powerful and impactful and meaningful, and that all these other people around me also believe in that and believe in me, and that together we can create the best possible thing for whatever the project is. And so I think that that's a kind of little twist on the question, but that would be my answer, is that like the more we see ourselves, and this isn't just actors of color, but I do think we have to face it uniquely. The more we see ourselves in such an authentic light and say, I have value, I belong in this space, and I also like me, I like what I can do with the character. I don't have to try to be, you know, I don't have to make myself into X version of myself in order to fit this character, but rather I can be my version, and that's a good version. That's a valuable version.
I think you touched upon something that I've always been sort of sensitive to when you talk about Jennica, a place at the table, so to speak. And I've always heard the complaint that sort of detractors would say that if you want diversity in these spaces, why don't you create your own space?
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I feel like all of us have done. And we have tried to create these spaces that are a lot more inclusive and a lot more safe for people like us. But, at the same time, I think that's important. But also the places where we do want a spot at the table, where we're just asking to be seen and heard in these larger institutions, we can have a space there, and we should. I feel like a lot of times when we do create our own spaces, it can be very hard to have the resources that some larger institutions have to be in front of the audiences that we would like to be in front of, and to tell the stories to the people that we would like to tell those stories to. And so for me, again, when we talk about a place at the table, or creating our own table, creating our own thing, and or accepting who we are at the table, I think it's important to understand what we as BIPOC performers go through when we create those spaces, and when we also ask to have a spot at those other places. It's not as simple as we make it out to be, and just like, well, we're just going to do our own thing, and hopefully, we'll be accepted, and hopefully this works out. The reality is that it is a lot of work, and there's a lot of resources that creating our own spaces that we just don't have access to, and so it can be detrimental when we are not invited to the table and we're just told to go create our own space. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. Oh, go ahead,
there
Karla.
should be like no, I was just gonna say there has to be a mix of both. I think that whenever we can, let's go out and create our own in whatever way that we can, and doors open and there are opportunities, and at the same time push for other venues. I mean, I never just look at one and say I'm just gonna go through whatever invitation I have, and that's it. I try to go to all of them.
Yeah.
And
you don't have to go to just one party. You can go to all the parties.
Go to every party.
Every party is yours.
And it's funny how this one can connect to this one, and you just, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think it's about like honoring yourself, honoring the space, and honoring the story, right? Like, because earlier, just right before this, we were chatting about these beautiful moments of intimate cultural exploration where we can like see something that maybe we weren't a part of, or maybe you are a part of, that's very unique to your culture, and it's celebrated, and that is so powerful. And there's that, right? And then there's kind of this other thing where you're like, I'm bringing me into a story that maybe wouldn't originally have some of these elements of me that are unique to me, including the fact that I am a BIPOC artist. And I'm hoping to bring this role to life with me in it, right? So you're kind of doing both. And I think all of that is valuable. And I do think that in general, sometimes you're like, anybody can be like, I want to create this role. I want to be this. And sometimes it's great to just get your really talented friends together and create it. And so I think there's so much value in that. But I agree with you, Archie, that we also need to be in the spaces that maybe didn't used to hold us or used to have us as included. And yeah, I think it's that honoring of all of those experiences and allowing, and for me, it's a lot about like allowing me to see myself as belonging in those spaces.
Absolutely.
And
I was
gonna say I'm a huge like, I was in English lit. I got a degree in English lit, so I'm hugely into Shakespeare, hugely into classic literature. And so whenever I get to play a British role, which I felt like was all this last year, I was like, great. Like in its original iteration, did this really include like the elements of me that make me me? Maybe not. But here I am doing the role.
It's a new,
So,
interesting way to see it. I love it.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I
and this kind of.
I was go
Go
ahead,
ahead, Archie.
Archie.
Go ahead, Archie. Then we'll
Well,
go with Karla.
I wanted to kind of, if I could segue just a little bit. This what Jennica was talking about. I'll kind of prime it, where those roles where we generally didn't see ourselves, or people didn't see us, or historically maybe we people don't see us there, but there are aspects of us as humans. Macbeth was the King of Scotland. I had the opportunity to play Macbeth a few years ago, and I'm definitely not who you imagine when you imagine a Scottish king. But there are things in my experience that I drew upon. It's like, oh, I've led people before. I've been conflicted, and I've had those dark moments. And you know what? That qualifies me. And
the universality of human connection and human
yeah,
experiences,
absolutely.
right?
And the one thing that I wanted to bring up, because we're talking a lot about diversity, and I think it is very important to have people of diverse skin color, but I also want to bring up differently abled people, neurodivergent people, different aged people in the industry as well. And I want to include them in sort of this conversation. And I want to call myself out. Earlier in my career, when I was producing, those things weren't necessarily on my radar. And I hope that I have done better in subsequent projects and everything. But I think that's one of the things about diversity, where we should recognize the place for ourselves, but we should also try to find those shortcomings that we might have had, and think about sort of who we might have inadvertently left out of the conversation, and try to include them as well.
Yeah, I love that, and I think we could have a whole separate conversation, like Jen, about different groups, especially for folks who are neurodivergent or have
I don't want to
disabilities.
take the air out of the room with that, but I feel like
it's great. Yeah.
Karla, you had something to add, though.
Yeah.
Yes,
Well,
sorry.
first of all, I had a question for Archie and Jennica. I was wondering if this has happened to you, but something that was happening a lot to me is being Latina. My agent would always send me to a certain role, like Latina maid. So every time there was a script that had a Latina maid, they would send me. And then I'd always get a comment, not always, because sometimes you audition and you don't hear back, right? But when I knew people that were in charge of the project, they would tell me, Karla, they never choose you because you don't have that maid look. They're not looking for. And my mind was like, haven't you seen Maid in Manhattan?
Hello. J-Lo right here.
But what was happening is that I started like, I don't want to go to this audition every time I got notified another maid. I'm like, I don't want to go because I know it's going to end up the same. And one day I learned to just go anyway, do my best, and see what I can bring to the table that maybe could make them change their mind. And when I learned this is when I did this audition and just brought what my gut told me to bring to the table. And they said, you know what? We were going to cast a guy for this role, but we liked you so much that we're going to turn him in. Now it's a woman. So that made me think we can change their mind, when we go to an audition.
You always hear like casting doesn't know exactly what they want until they see it,
Yeah.
and I think
Mhm.
that's also such a good example of that. But it kind of feeds into what I felt like I was saying earlier around this
Mhm.
sense of like, do you believe in yourself? Do you believe in what you bring to the
Mhm.
table and what you can do? And the reality is like, you can do all of it. Like, Karla, you can
Mhm.
do all of it. Warren, you can do
Mhm.
all
Yes.
of it. Archie, you can do all of it. We can, you can, as an artist where your capability lies within yourself. And so don't limit you by saying, yeah, I can only be the maid. Like, even if you're
Mhm.
reading for the maid, walk in and be like, I know who I am. I know what I bring, and I'm going to bring me. And
I'm
like the
totally
me that
auditioning
I
for the next
bring is
Latina
powerful.
maid role. I'm totally doing that.
Well,
Warren, which way am I pointing, Warren?
Karla, you reminded me of a quote that came up last year that I was absolutely in love with, and it came from Rahul Kohli. I'm probably butchering the pronunciation of the name.
I love
Um,
him.
I love him too. If you don't know who he is, he played the sheriff in Midnight Mass, and he's an actor of
He played the chef in the earlier season.
yeah, I want to say East Asian descent, something like that. Um, and he was also in the Haunting of Bly Manor. He's a British actor, but he is an actor who has brown skin. And
Mhm.
anyway, they asked him kind of a similar question, Karla, and his response was, "These roles that I get offered, they offer the same ones to other Indian actors like Dev Patel, Aziz Ansari, and everybody." And he says, "I'm not in competition with those guys. The roles that they get are the roles that they're perfect for. What I want to be in
Mhm.
competition with is the people like Chris Hemsworth, people like Chris Pine. Uh, why can't I be Thor? Why can't I be,
Mhm.
Captain America, Captain Kirk? Why not? Those are the roles that I
Mhm.
want to be in contention for. Those are the roles that I want to
Mhm.
be for because uh, why not?" And it
Mhm.
Mhm.
reminds me of this other quote from Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who was the first woman on the Supreme Court. And earlier in her career, she was asked. I'm ad libbing both of these stories, and I'm remembering them kind of slowly. She was asked, when are you going to be satisfied, with equity and diversity? And she responded something to the equivalent of, "Well, when all the Supreme Court is female and they're all women." And the journalists were kind
Mhm.
of taken aback, and she said,
Mhm.
"Well, they've been all men for hundreds of years, and nobody batted an eye."
Oh. Mhm.
So when we can get to a point where, and we're not there, uh,
Mhm.
I emphatically we are not there, but when we can get to a point in society where we can have these conversations and it's not controversial at all, uh, I think we all win as humans, and we all win,
Yeah.
and we can
Mhm.
be sort of the better version of ourselves that we tell in our stories.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Just have to note that Rahul Kohli, he is Indian. But
Okay.
also his birthday
Oh,
is the
sure.
day before mine. So I'm like, just love him. And RBG, I think in her quote, I looked it up while you were talking, because I think she says like women belong in all places where decisions are being made. It shouldn't be that women are the exception. And I
Yeah.
think that's
Mhm.
exactly it, right? Like it shouldn't be that anyone is the exception, but rather that like we are all exceptional and we belong in this space together because the most powerful version of the story you want to tell, the most beautiful, impactful version of the story you want to tell, the funniest version, the most like joy inspiring, awe inspiring version includes all of us, right? And impacts all of
Mhm.
us. And so that includes
Mhm.
anybody who may not have been normally considered back in the
Mhm.
day.
I also want to kind of speak on something that we see happening, especially here in like the Utah Filmmakers Group, right? We had a post that came up not too long ago that was talking about the class that Archie and Wendy helped teach, and Jenica's been there at, and there was a couple people that were trying to make it a bit of a controversial topic. But it was the same type of people that the class is not for. And there's a reason why that class wasn't made for that person, because there's 1,000 classes that already exist for that person. So, and you guys kind of hit it on the head. It's like you keep having people say, you know what, if you don't like it, go make your own opportunities. Well, then you make your own opportunities, and then people like that come back and gripe that you made your own opportunities. And I just want to come over and slap them in the face. I'm like,
yeah. Well, to speak to that, I mean, as BIPOC performers, or people considered not necessarily the standard image of actor that you or actress that you would think of immediately here in Utah. There are certain challenges that we face as minorities and as marginalized people that are unique to us that other people will never face. The questions like, for example, I was in this large cast, and they were creating characters, and they assigned me to be an Indian man. And I was like, you guys know I'm Filipino, right? Why do I get this? Why do I have to be this? Why did you give this to me? Why can't I just be another character? Why can't I just be an Englishman? And that's something that none of the other actors in that company were asked. That it wasn't ever put upon them, and it wasn't ever something that was considered for them. But as it happens, I am a brown man, and it was put to me. That's something that, frankly, none of my white counterparts have to face. And I've heard so many stories like these, and I know Karla and Jennica, you probably have similar stories where something was put upon you because of who you were perceived to be,
or just the way you look.
Yeah, yeah, just the way you look. And again, it's not something that those people that you talked about, Warren, that were complaining, it's not something they have to face. Mm-hmm. So, you know what? There are plenty of other acting groups for you. Yeah. But this is for people who have to face those questions and those situations.
I also think, and I know we're starting to run out of time, but I think to speak to that too, like we as diverse people, we're not a monolith. Like the three people right here, the four of us, like we are not the exact same. We are different people, but we are willing to say, in any setting we're in, we are looking for our common threads. Like we're looking for ways we can connect. And I think anytime we're on set, I want to connect with everyone on that set as me, right? As a competent person to be on the set with, as an enjoyable person to be around, and then also as an artist. I think that, so it's important to remember, like when you're looking at things or groups of people, to not see them as one big group of a monolith, like just one big clump, right? We're all unique people. And then also understand that like the way we can connect with each other is by shared experiences often. And so we want spaces where people can share who they are and their experiences. And if it's sensitive, which some of this really is, then we want to have a space where that feels safe. And everyone deserves that. Like I work in the mental health field, and I think about groups I've led or times I've spoken with parents and teens who are struggling, or times I've spoken with teens alone, or, or even in my own life, like groups that I've been a part of, where sometimes you just need to be able to say, this is the thing I'm struggling with. And I know that every single person in this room feels what this struggle feels like, and that can speak to how they sorted through it. And we love diversity of experience, but then being able to say, yeah, let's talk about that one thing that we all in this room share. And it's not to be exclusionary of other people who haven't had that experience, but rather to create a space for that experience to be heard and just heard on its own, if that makes sense.
Absolutely does make sense.
And I think that we really, any human, any artist, we want to connect as human beings. So we don't want to say you don't belong. We want to say the opposite, right? Like, we all really do belong. And the ways that we as BIPOC artists can feel effective in our art and feel like we belong is when we also have spaces where we can express our traumas and our pains in a way that's understandable, just like other people have in the past. Like, if you've always been able to go out and express your pain and have people understand you, then I want that too.
Yeah, Karla.
Yes, and I wanted to share something really quick. There was this product that is made for Latina women. And so the owner of this product had a crew that they were going to be in charge of making this commercial. So I was called to that audition, and I did not get the part. Then I somehow got to meet the owner of this product, and he's like, could you be on my commercial? And so I told him, I actually auditioned for you. And the lady told me, well, you are still free to audition, but your skin is too white to be a Latina for this. And the owner of the product was so angry that somebody in his team, without knowing, told an actress, you're too white to be portraying a Latina. And he said that your skin tone, Karla, is exactly the skin tone that I needed in my commercial. So my whole point with this story is, if you're going to hire a diverse cast, also make sure that your crew, there's diversity, because they can kind of educate you on the process. If you're gonna just have
Say that again. Say that again. Hire a diverse cast and crew, not just
Correct.
the people who are on the camera, so you can do some virtue signaling. Hire a diverse crew
Correct.
too.
Yes, it is so
For
important.
those in the back who aren't listening, for those who are watching this on mute, listen to that again.
Yeah.
Well, you don't have to signal or be performative. Like, you can actually do it. There are so many talented people out there.
Yeah, and coming straight up as a producer, I will tell you, the more you open yourself out to more opportunities to meet new people who are not in your neighborhood that you grew up with, the more opportunities you give people, like Archie was talking about, 90% of them are going to surprise you and be amazing. And you're going to be wanting to bring them back on every single production. You will find those diamonds in the rough every single time. I absolutely love it. Any last thoughts on this one topic? Because I have one last question to throw around the room before we wrap things up. Because I did only say an hour, and I don't want to take you guys away from important things you guys have planned. If you were to give any pearls of wisdom to somebody entertaining the idea of getting into the film and entertainment industry, what would it be, and what are the first actionable step that person could take? That's a processing one. You're gonna have to think about that.
Yeah, go.
Well, I mentioned at the beginning that I started in sales, and actually I feel like sales was a great training for me to become an actress, because I had to learn to take a lot of no's and to still be persistent, and I found out that I had to get through all these no's to get to a yes. And so somebody that is starting as an actress, do not get discouraged, especially if like me, I'm a Latina. There's a lot of things that I was told that I shouldn't do. And I went from they're right to then saying, no, I know that I can find a yes. I know that I can find someone that believes in me. So just be persistent and do not take all those no's personally. Just keep going and you'll find your yes.
I love it. Archie, give me your input.
The Utah Filmmakers page, Warren. there are plenty of groups online where people are posting for casting calls and crew calls. So there are plenty of opportunities. Karla talked about sales, and there are a lot of sales and marketing production companies out here that are always making commercials. They're always making something. And there's always something going on. And if the resources are there on Facebook, look up any combination of the word Utah filmmaker, Utah actor, Utah crew, production, etc., and you will find those opportunities. And yeah, you're going to get a lot of no's or no responses, but I feel like there's plenty of work around here that you'll hear the yeses, and that's going to make up for so many no's. And there's a lot more yeses out here than you think.
That's true. Jennica, take us home. Give me some great advice. This is now no pressure, but you're the last one giving advice, so this has to be the absolute greatest advice of all time.
Wow, Warren.
No pressure.
Wow. Okay.
No pressure at all.
My advice is to invest in yourself. So, of course, join Facebook pages, go to class, learn things about your craft, learn things about what you want to do, get yourself on set, get yourself in plays, get yourself on stage crews, on crews. And there are lots of ways to do that. So that's my tangible, which is really a piggyback off of Archie. So I'll give that to Archie, but piggybacked. But my advice is invest in yourself, meaning like spend time knowing you, spend time caring for you. And this also has to do with sort of the nose thing, but more about like, don't ever go into your art trying to prove who you are or prove to someone else that they want you or that like they need you. Don't go in it trying to gain acceptance from anybody else. Make sure that you're coming home to yourself first, every day, every time. Care for yourself, invest in who you are as a person, as a being, and as an artist so that you can go back out into the world and use you to make an impact and use you to tell a beautiful story that other people want to know, want to share, and are passionate about and care about.
All right.
I love that.
Check. Yep. That was best advice. You win. All right. 10 points to Gryffindor right there. I don't know if I had prizes. That's all.
I need a prize.
We should have prizes on the show.
Being alive with you and not giving something away.
Yeah, we're used to giving away men's rings or hats or things on a live video, and we're not giving away a dang thing. I got this ring, but my wife would be sad if I gave it away. So let's not give away any rings. All right, guys, thank you so much. Oh, guys, thank you so much. What was that?
Oh, I said thank you for having us. Thank you, Warren.
Yes.
Well, yes, thank me.
Warren.
Yes,
this
absolutely.
is awesome.
Yeah,
for sure.
I'm in love with this entire series.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll have more of these kind of discussions. I don't want this to be a one-off. I think we need to come and revisit this. Let's talk about some great opportunities for people to get involved. Let's talk about those successes and ways for everyone to be more and more successful. There is no... this idea of scarcity in our industry is baloney. There's projects happening on the daily here in just Utah alone. And that doesn't count the worldwide projects that are happening. If you want to open yourself up to that
And there will always be. People will always be creating, and we are designed to tell stories. So.
Non-stop. As human beings, regardless of where you are from, what you look like, and what your physical or mental abilities are, we are all storytellers at the end. Guys, thank you so much. Big thank you to Karla, Jennica, and Archelaus. Thank you guys for being on here. Now, what's happening next week is I got a guy coming in from Philadelphia. He's going to be talking about a platform for filmmakers that have their stuff out there. They want to actually make some dough off of it. It's called Nomad TV. And it's going to be happening Friday at 7 p.m. like we're doing every single week. Make sure you like and follow us on Facebook or subscribe on YouTube so you get those notifications. And I'll see you guys next week. Take care, everybody.